Hello, welcome to episode number 18 of the Herald's Horn. Today we're talking about bands, and more bands. The making of Nadu, some new GP like tournaments. That's it. We talk so long about this stuff. It's a great episode though. As always, joined by Emma and Dan. After the break, I will be interviewing the one and only Benjamin Wheeler about his area of expertise, that is running formats. You know, that guy runs a lot of formats these days. We talk about Gladiator, we talk about Canlander, we talk about his experience on the Commander Advisory Group. It's a great episode. It's a great interview. I hope you are ready. Without further ado, let's get into it. Hello, it's time for the Herald's Horn. My name is Cal Jones, and today on episode 18, I am joined by the wonderful Emma. Emma is here. Emma has surely played 200 hours of Baldur's Gate 3 since the last episode. Say hello, Emma.
Hello. It's actually 35 hours, but I appreciate the guess.
That's a pretty good amount of time for 2 weeks, I gotta say.
Yep. I don't know. For 2 weeks, that seems kind of light.
I have a full-time job.
Yeah, that's
things
I know.
To do.
I'm not saying that you should have clocked 80 hours, but if you had clocked 80 hours, I would have been like, yeah, correct.
And do you have a review for your first 35 hours?
In my co-host notebook, I do.
Excellent. Speaking of co-hosts, I am also joined on this episode, as quite literally always, except for one of them. It's Dan. Say hello, Dan.
Hello, Horn Section. How we doing today? Have I really only missed one episode so far?
I believe so. There was just 1 week where you said, actually, I need to do my job rather than attend this recording this week. And I was like, wow, okay. I didn't know it was like that. I didn't know.
Wow, that's funny. I've thought multiple times about not coming then. It just hasn't come to fruition more than once.
There may have been another time I'm forgetting where you were like, I'm wandering in the woods.
Yeah, I'm wondering if I lied to you and if that was the same event.
Probably.
I would lie to you.
Dan, you don't have to lie to me.
I want the jacket, though.
You have no reason to be here.
No, anyways, I love my friends and I love magic.
You have no reason to ever be here. And Dan's like, so true. Drops from the call.
You're
all right.
From
the theme song. And welcome back. As always, we are going to hop directly into the news. It's been a huge week. It feels like we go like every other episode of like not having a lot to talk about on the news, having a lot to talk about for products, having a lot to talk about news, not having a lot to talk about on products. Well, spoilers, it's one of those episodes. I'm going to hop right into it. Our first topic is, I guess, as always with the big news episodes, we have a lot of shakeups in several formats. I'm just gonna say what the bands and the formats were, and then I'm gonna go right to your two's live reactions. Pioneer, Amelia band, and Sorin, the Planeswalker, known for cheating and vampires band. Apparently, Vampires too strong in Pioneer. Both vampires banned. Modern, Grief. We all know how much everyone loves Grief. And of course, unsurprisingly, Nadu, Winged Wisdom, both banned in Modern. Legacy, Grief banned there as well. Finally, there's no more Grief in Legacy. And then a lot of people, to put a little editorializing here first, a lot of people were expecting some Pioneer hoping for a Pioneer shakeup, maybe not expecting one. Obviously expecting a Nadu ban in Modern, hoping for more, and then a lot of people were hoping and praying for the Grief ban in Legacy, if not more. But then out of left field, Vintage changes. It's not every day where we get some changes in Vintage. Urza's Saga, basically a must-play 4 of in most meaningful Vintage decks, and brand new Modern Horizons 3 uncommon Vexing Bauble. Restricted. Dan or Emma, whoever wants to go first, how do you feel about this ban update?
Emma, I feel like you have more opinions on more formats than I do.
I mean, I have no clue with Vintage, so I'm going to give you Vintage. So the bans in general seem pretty good. To be honest, it was more than I was expecting. I wasn't expecting much out of Pioneer. I was expecting bottom line, Nadu ban and Grief ban in Legacy, like those two. That was my and that's the least Wizards needed to do to hit the bar of this ban announcement's good. But they did more, and more is great. Surely Grief getting banned in Modern felt a bit weird, to be honest. But it felt a little bit. I get why they banned it.
It's super widely played right now, but it's also miserable.
The card is not fun. It is heinous to play against. But just considering the conversation around the One Ring, that could have also saw a ban, but it didn't. It dodged it this time. Right now, copies of the One Ring are about $120 because they've just shot up since the ban. So good luck getting a playset of those. In general, I think the ban seemed good. I'm glad Amalia's banned as well, just because of the nuances of just her templating and how awkward it came up against Boris Heroic at the Pro Tour in Chicago, where Chris Anderson and Simon Nielsen played a 7-game semi-final or quarter-final just because of the rules interaction between Heroic and Amalia. And then obviously seeing Sorin banned, I think is good because Vampires is just clearly too good. Another deck that broke out of Chicago, which was, about 6 months ago now. So generally seems pretty good. Bit worried about how Is It Phoenix is going to do, because Treasure Cruise has long been on the conversation to have a ban as well, just because that card's really good. It actually had the highest win percentage at Pro Tour Chicago, even though it had no top 8 finishes. But yeah, generally I'm quite happy with it. I think it's got people excited about playing Constructed again, which is what you want, because the last month has just felt like such a lull, especially when Modern's the RC key format, so it felt like the first 3 weeks of that just was wasted, essentially.
So it was very much just show up playing Nadu, or maybe you're not that serious about winning, was very much the tenor of discussion around the format.
Yeah. I have heard, I want to say it was Cedric Phillips brought this idea up, but I don't think he was the first one to say it, but I think he was just reiterating the idea on Twitter. I don't know if you heard of this, of people wanting to restrict the One Ring in Modern.
I've heard about this as well.
Yeah, I obviously unprecedented in any non-vintage format, but I was just interested in your thoughts on that, if you thought that could work, or if that was any sort of fix to the problem.
I think the idea is novel. It's a cool concept. I just think it adds too much complexity to a format that's already complicated.
Yeah.
What should have happened is there should have been some text put on the One Ring going, you may only run one of these in your deck.
How flavorful
That's
that would have been.
That's what it should have.
Yeah.
But they ran out of text because the One Ring does way too much already, and it has flavor text and everything else.
It does do so much.
They got to put it down by the illustrator credits.
Yeah, and if Wizards wanted that, they should have added it to the actual text box, not us creating this extra layer in Modern. It's we're going to have a restricted thing. Is it going to happen again? Am I going to go to F&M and get really confused as I'm running 4 One Rings. I'm not familiar with the whole restricted thing.
The precedent that it sets for adding other things to the restricted list for Modern, I think, would be the worst part of it.
It just segregates it in a really awkward way. So you either have to ban it, which I wouldn't be surprised if that happens at some point, or Wizards printed text saying you could only run one in Construct text. But then it probably wouldn't have sold as well. The set wouldn't have sold as well, considering it's a modern set. So
although actually, I just saw on Twitter this past week Mark Rosewater confirming that they do have the ability to reprint the One Ring Bowmasters, etc. Within universe versions
theming,
of them. So that's pretty cool. That's big news, and maybe that's the reason why they wouldn't have to ban the One Ring overall, but it is so prevalent in the Modern format. I saw someone post the top 8, and Grief was in 2 decks in the top 8, and I think the One Ring was in 5.
Yeah, the biggest part of the ring is that you just draw so many cards that you just replay the next one, and then you replay the next one. And guess what? You have Khan the Great Creator, you're probably exiled on. Get to replay that one and use the minus ability, get it back, do it all again. Looping the One Ring is really obnoxious because the opponent can't do anything. You have pro everything. So it's not quite as obnoxious as the Nadu turns that take 25 minutes that they don't know if they're going to win or not. This feels like some inevitability because you're just drawing so many cards as well.
Yeah, it is essentially a soft lock.
Not much of a downside despite the bird encounters, you know, doing that. But if you just play another one, it doesn't matter.
Exactly. And you get the option of like, do I want to draw more cards next turn, or do I just need protection for this turn cycle and I'll keep my One Ring with more counters on it? Yeah, it's extremely overpowered.
And it's colorless, so it just goes in anything.
It can go into
the
anything.
energy decks that even Wizards mentioned in the BNR, you know, Boris and Mardi, even some flavors of Jeskai with Mockingbird are now creeping out. Some of those are also playing the One Ring, because why wouldn't you?
It's the most powerful 4-drop you could possibly play, so I mean, yeah, you'd be kind of foolish not to, right?
I do so wish that they could just like restrict a card in Modern and never do it again. That would just be deeply funny. But
so complicated.
But
as complexity.
They did say on the weekly stream today, they had a stream talking about the ban updates and, you know, kind of their thinking around it, some more context, answered a lot of questions. Somebody did ask that question and they did answer it. They were like, hey, what about can we restrict the one ring? And they were like, well, as fun as that would be, number one, we don't think we will ever put lore considerations into a ban list for competitive Magic play. And number two, even if we like did think that was a good solution, then that would open up Pandora's box of a million people then asking down the pipeline, no matter how much they emphasized it would be a one-time thing, that have a lot of people just being like, well, what if you just restricted Nadu? What if it, you know, what if we restrict days in Legacy? So like you can still play it, but
just
exactly. It's a mess. It's not aesthetically pleasing. All that kind of stuff. So I think this is a good ban from top to bottom, but kind of like y'all were getting at, specifically with the One Ring and Modern, it feels like in every format, at least from what I understand, They went like one step farther than I thought they were going to, in that like I thought maybe they would ban one card. Well, Pioneer kind of always felt like an all or nothing thing to me. So what was that? I thought they were going to like ban Nadu and Modern and maybe ban something in Legacy. But I thought if they were going to ban something in Pioneer, they were going to ban Amelia and Sorin and Treasure Cruise. Or, you know, if they were going to ban something in Modern, I thought it was going to be like just Nadu, or maybe Nadu and the One Ring and Grief. And I thought if they were going to ban, I knew they were going to ban Grief in Legacy, but I thought maybe also they would also go one step farther and just ban Psychic Frog, because it's very quickly becoming extremely dominant. But they pretty much said on stream today, they talked about that a little bit, and they pretty much said they don't want to knock out like the entire format at once. So like if they did ban Treasure Cruise out of Arclight Phoenix, then, you know, Pioneer would just like, as it currently stands, would just be entirely remade. All three of the top decks would like no longer exist. Specifically with Pioneer 2, I think there's some ideas that without Amelia, Amalia, and Sorin decks, you know, the vampire deck and the Amalia combo deck existing, that lets like Lotus come back, and Lotus Field combo does kind of beat up on Arclight Phoenix pretty good. And so, you know,
yeah, I was going to bring that up with like the Legacy bannings as well. Like I wouldn't want to see Psychic Frog banned along with Grief, because I do think that there's some valuable testing to be had with what does this deck look like with just Psychic Frog in it. It's certainly not like the fact that, like, we've talked about how dominant this deck is in Legacy before, so I won't reiterate it all right now. But yeah, it's the fact that it's the two-pronged weapon that you have between Griefing and Psychic Frog that makes it so unrelenting. So yeah, like Reanimator has always been a fairly good deck, but I think like previous to this, and especially like previous to Grief era, it was more of like a tier 1.5 to 2 deck. So like, does Psychic Frog keep it as the like S tier deck that it is right now? I think not necessarily, and I would definitely like to see how it like continues to play out and see how powerful it is without the rest of it.
Definitely. I think the one thought that I have about Psychic Frog is that, yes, obviously Reanimator will be much less powerful than it is now, because, you know, you don't have that turn one awesome play of strip the best card from your hand, reanimate, I have a great creature, strip the second best card from your hand, play pattern anymore. But in a format where Dreadhorde Arcanist is probably never coming off of that ban list, I don't know how long Psychic Frog will be alive, no matter what deck is being played in.
It's similar play patterns, right?
Yeah,
which is
kind
the
of.
biggest sticking point, right?
Yeah.
So why is Psychic Frog around if Arcanist is banned and it does a very similar thing? And two very strong colours for Legacy as well. Black and blue aren't, the weakest colours in the format.
I am still happy though. Like Dan said, I think it's good that they're letting it play. See where it goes. See what happens. Because
I know the Izzet Delver decks are delving into Grixis to try to play that, but it's not currently coming up as a 4 of. I think in a lot of lists. I guess I'd have to check like MTG Goldfish or something to know if that's really true. But it's certainly still like the splash color in those decks, and I think it being Dimir will keep it keep the ceiling of it, or maybe the floor of it rather, a little bit higher than Dreadhorde Arcanist just being red and colorless.
Definitely. Yeah, that's true. It is harder to cast. It has a little more requirements to maximize it. When Dreadhorde Arcanist said, "Hey, you want to play all the spells you already want to play? What if you cast them again?"
And I think a big difference too is that you can cast a Dreadhorde Arcanist with Wasteland, and in a format where Wasteland is so important. Like, not to say that all of the Frog decks are not playing Wasteland. They obviously are, but it does make it genuinely harder to cast.
So yeah, I hope that Modern doesn't become the One Ring deck. To continue talking about media that I've consumed about the bans today, I did listen to the GRET podcast with Dave Shields concerning the bans before I came, and we recorded this because I'm always listening to that GRET podcast as soon as it drops, and they were relatively high on the One Ring being able to like stick around, and there to be non-One Ring decks and there to be One Ring decks and that kind of stuff. Especially there's in recent times, in the last couple sets, there have been new tools to help fight against it if you don't want to play it. And now that you don't have to worry about losing to Nadu or about Grief, you can maybe register Force of Negation in your 75 again and not be embarrassed by it.
Tall order, man. I don't know.
I know. So I'm happy it happened. I'm glad we finally got here. Oh, another big thing they announced about the bans. In the article, they did announce also that they are going to move the cadence. They're changing the cadence of the bans to rather than aligning them with set releases as they currently are, which kind of trapped them over and over again, being like, well, we're not going to ban something here because there's a Pro Tour happening in 2 weeks, and also we don't know what X set's going to actually do to the format, so I guess we'll just wait for the next 3 months. Now they're changing it so that rather than it's going to line up with, there's an upcoming RCQ season that's starting right now. Let's have a BNR. There is an upcoming RC. Excellent. BNR. So they're aligning it much closer with they're aligning it around the RCQ and RC schedule rather than the set release schedule, which to me just makes perfect sense. That is the main places where the average player is going to be playing the formats that are run by the BNR announcements. And so the closer that the BNR announcements can be to when it's going to be most relevant, sounds good to me. The other big news that happened yesterday, and yeah, we're recording this real close to the BNR. The one and only Michael Majors released a article called "On Banning Nadu Winged Wisdom in Modern." It starts off, as the lead designer of Modern Horizons 3, I wanted to weigh in on our decision today. Nadu Winged Wisdom was a design mistake, and then it goes on to there. He kind of.
I'm getting very big. Aaron Forsyth with the Skull Clamp article way back when.
Skull Clamp was a design mistake.
I saw Aaron Forsyth retweet it and be like, this is a good article. So,
Yeah.
if anyone's a judge.
Or also there was 5 years ago now, holy moly, as Carmen Claperens reminded everyone on the Twitch stream today, Hogak was 5 years ago. There was also a very similar Morrow article where Morrow was like, sorry guys, I just wanted to make a big dumb fun card, oops.
Too fun
Oopsie.
Mark.
I didn't think this would happen. So, every once in a while, a lead designer gets to write this very fun article. And so I'll link it in the description. You can go and read it yourself if you want, dear listener. But it was a very interesting story of, for the vast majority of the set's life and through the time and then after the time when contractors were hyper intensively testing the set, Nadu Winged Wisdom was in one state, and that is a different state in which it was printed toward the end of kind of before the set was finalized. A group of people raised concerns with what how this legendary creature design, which at the time it said you may cast permanent spells as though they had flash. There was some concerns about how obnoxious of an effect that would be in Commander, and so they decided to change the card at the last second. The people who Michael Majors, who himself designed the final iteration of the card, and then whoever else put eyes on it before the set was printed, did not catch Shuko, Lightning Greaves, any of that kind of stuff, type of potential interaction. That's just going to happen. But
wait, Cal, don't you want to blame this on the incompetence of game designers who do this professionally when you don't?
Well, I do not want to blame it on the incompetence of game designers by any means, shape, or form, because, to once again reference the stream today, Emma brought up the fact that, we haven't had something happen like this in 5 years. And before Hogak, we hadn't had Eldrazi Winter happened and Oko happened. But, these major design mistakes happen in the course of a couple times a decade rather than like every other set. And
you have to understand how many cards Wizards print per set.
Exactly.
The fact that it's like 2 a decade that are completely obnoxious, that is a pretty good percentage when you take all the cards they printed, like brand new cards they printed in that time.
Yeah. And not to mention, just
I imagine it's a lot worse for
other
TCGs.
Yeah.
But.
And just the speed with which we're releasing sets at the moment, like, I feel like I'm much more surprised that we don't have more Nadus in the world with the speed with which we're putting things out. Like, everyone saying, like, how could you not think of Shuko? It's like, well, you have, your 2024 site.
You didn't.
Yeah.
You definitely did not. You just saw a tweet that somebody said it, and you're like, "Oh yeah, that makes sense. Let's do that."
Yeah, exactly. Like, you are not some
of magic jokes from a Kamigawa set ages ago.
Yeah, I hate to see all of the people being like, "Oh, these designers are dumb. They don't know what they're doing."
I imagine the Wizards designers didn't know about Soul Spike and Necrodominance.
Yeah.
Yep.
There's
who's going to pick up on this stuff? This stuff, like, some of this is old.
Exactly.
Checking
We're
every
getting close
magic
to
card with every other magic card
now.
The set would never come out.
Yeah.
So I think my 2 cents on the story of the creation and resulting too late banning of Nadu is kind of thus. Like, number one, I think, we can, I don't want to blame it on Commander, the format, right? But I do have a concern as a Commander player and also as a Magic player. I would rather Wizards just like design the cards that they would like to design and like put them out into the world, rather than like at the last second someone being like, that might be a little obnoxious in Commander. Now that we're at the nearing the end date of the set, can we just redesign that card? I think like when you're at that point, especially when you're at the point where they were, where, there wasn't going to be much playtesting, if any, of cards that you're going to be making major changes to, unless it's a major concern. Like if they had the resulting text of Nadu and someone had said, oh, hey, now that all the playtesting's done, I have thought of the card Shuko. We should change this. I think that's a great reason to change it. But if the concern is very late in the process, this could be a little obnoxious in Commander. I have good news. There is a backstop for that problem. There is a solution to a card actually being too good or too obnoxious in Commander. It's the Commander Rules Committee who, if they so wish, could ban the card that comes out and is potentially too obnoxious. I have a lot of thoughts about the design, the era of design for Commander TM that has its highs and its lows, and this to me does feel like a real low, because we have had Initiative break Legacy before. Whenever, that's okay, frustrating, but it's Legacy. I don't mean to talk down on Legacy, but I think that Legacy being messed up for a really, in service of an entire set that gave a really cool mechanic to Commander, that's just going to happen sometimes. But like this kind of decision making where so late in the process they can say, oh, that might be obnoxious for Commander, gets a card entirely redesigned such that it breaks a premier constructed format for a long time.
My biggest frustration with that is that, sure, that would make sense if Modern Horizons 3 didn't have a Commander release to go alongside it.
You literally could have shoved it into the Simic precon deck.
Right, this is it. It's just like I get it if it was like MH2 where there was no Commander product and these cards, this is the only way you could get these cards in the base set. But you literally had a Commander set to support it. Why are we accommodating Commander in a base set when you already have a supplemental set that does that? It just felt really confusing to me. Like the article's great, don't get me wrong. It's really cool to see that level of transparency, especially coming from Wizards, because, they could have just said nothing and just swept it over and just let the BNR do the talking. But they were like, no, we want to take accountability. This is how we do stuff. Here is some insight to how we design these cards. And sometimes they slip through the cracks. We're only human, mistakes are going to happen. But yeah, it's just like, dude, there is an RC, there's a Commander committee, you've got Commander precons, like, what are you doing?
Yeah, it seems like an inevitable downfall of wanting to make products in this way. And it doesn't seem to have a whole lot of upside. I would love to sit down and talk with you, Cal, about this subject, because I have so many opinions. I could talk for hours about this, and there are a lot of highs and lows of it. But I think it, generally, on average, tends to do a lot more harm than good, because the Commander players, I'm also primarily a Commander player, do not like these cards very much. Some people are enthralled with them, and there is something to be said about cards doing things easier for you, where in the past I feel like Commander decks had to be quite a bit more creative with how they were getting their point across, so to speak. But yeah, I think that's sort of just my point, is that Commander players are creative. You don't need to serve them a Nadu on a silver platter, they'll be able to figure something fun out, or they won't, and they have 1,000 other legendary creatures to choose from.
I get why Wizards / Hasbro did it, because you want to accommodate to the biggest cohort, which is Commander. It is your casual players, so it makes absolute sense. I just wonder sometimes that, sure, the ethos for Magic sets now is primarily catering towards Commander. Whether they intentionally want to do it or not, it's in the back of mind, because it's been such a focus for the last 5 years or so. So when stuff like Nadu happens, it's just tinkering with it for the sake of it without realizing what they're doing. They're just so used to accommodating to Commander at this point. They just do it without hesitation. Yeah,
absolutely. And it's honestly,
dangerous.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say. Is I fear that sort of mentality is at odds with the longevity of Magic in general, because it's just so easy to fall into the power creep hole, to put it simply.
Yeah. I mean, I get it with Initiative. Being on the Pauper panel, we had to ban most of those cards because they were obnoxious, but that's why the Pauper panel exists. We can just ban them and move on. Yep.
Yep. I will say, to your point, Emma, it has done very well for Wizards / Hasbro to kind of do this change in focus. I don't think it's any secret that once Wizards stopped treating their primary audience as the group of people who would often brag about how little they spent on Magic cards and how little number of decks they had or whatever, to when they started focusing on the people who bragged about how much money they spent on Commander and how many decks they had, they suddenly became $1 billion company overnight. So I don't think that's a huge secret, but I do wish that we could have a little. I do wish the vibes could be a little different. Okay. I guess that's enough of us talking about the bands, talking about Nadu.
Wait, I want to talk about Vintage though.
Oh yeah, sure. I thought we had already talked about Vintage. Yeah. Vintage.
No, so yeah, we've got 2 restrictions, which is like, we've had so few changes to Vintage over the past few years. I cannot remember the last time they restricted 2 cards at the same time. It's been probably like before I started playing Magic. So yeah, we've got Urza Saga going on the restricted list, as well as Vexing Bauble. Is that the card? Yeah, Vexing Bauble. Both incredibly powerful cards. Well, no, I'm sorry. Urza Saga, incredibly powerful card. Vexing Bauble, a lot less powerful. It was very interesting to read through the reasoning for restricting them both. Urza Saga, I completely agree with. I think in theory, that is a card that tends to lend itself to a game plan that is just sort of overpowered in general. It most prominently is played, I guess previous to now, in the Jewel Shop deck, trying to get out Coveted Jewel, which just draws a bunch of cards. And Urza Saga is basically the only win con in the deck, because the entire point of the deck is to just keep replaying Coveted Jewels, draw more cards until you can assemble Time Vault combo. But outside of dealing damage with your 4 copies of Urza Saga, it has no game plan. So I'm interested to see how that shakes up that deck, if people continue to play it just on a singular Urza Saga, if people drift towards other decks. I know it is generally regarded as being like a pox on the format. It is just completely like uninteractive play, and just doesn't really lend itself to a good environment. The Bauble, though, is much more interesting to me, and the reasoning on it was that it just wasn't very fun to play against, which I can see. They were talking about, like, we want people to play Vintage because they want to cast Black Lotus and Force of Will and spells like that, which obviously Vexing Bauble turns off, and the argument that it's a lot more powerful than Chalice of the Void because it can sacrifice itself, extremely valid. Also fetchable off of Urza Saga, so like that's another added fold to this. But I listened to I Am Actually Level 1 made a really great video discussing the restrictions, and really went into depth on the different, like every single top deck in the format, how they might change in reaction to one another changing. Definitely suggested watching if you're interested in Vintage. But yeah, Justin was saying that primarily the decks that wanted to play 4 of Vexing Baubles were the decks that were bad against Force of Will and the other like really overpowered free spell decks. So yeah, I'm interested to see if that is the right call in the long term. It's a powerful card, but if you look at the restricted list for Vintage, it's probably the least powerful one on there, or close to the bottom. I guess Gush is also on the restricted list, so I'd probably put it like this last or second to last against Gush. But yeah, extremely interesting. Excited to see how this shakes up the format, though. Vintage has been in a pretty healthy place for a pretty long while now. Jewel Shop has been annoying, but not in any sense overpowered. It's like a definitely like beatable deck. So yeah, I'm interested to see what shakes up here and what becomes more powerful. I'm interested to see like Xerox decks or bug decks, how those are going to be affected. Yeah, interested to see if more fair strategies come up, or if artifact decks really just continue to dominate.
I think it'll be. It is, as someone who has watched that format from a distance for a long time now, it is always fascinating to me to just like, I know like clockwork, I can just like wait around and know that there will be another card restricted that has the artifact that cares about artifacts. It always comes. It'll until
die for workshop sins.
Exactly. But that's our, it's just like a lot of cards have died for Dazes and Wasteland sins and Legacy. So here, or Brainstorm or what have you. But that's just how the format works. People would like to play them. So,
well, yeah, I mean, the whole idea of Vintage is that you are able to play all of your cards that you could possibly have in your collection. Just the question of how many of them you can play. I would rather play 4 Mishra's Workshops than 4 Lodestone Golems, though.
Really?
That is true.
Are you sure about that?
No, maybe not. I'll take it back.
Well, okay. That's all we have to say about the bands. Maybe I'll play some Vintage on Magic the Gathering Online now that I don't have to
fun. Play it with you.
Now that I'm not going to be just bouncing, 6/6 constructs off of each other. We have more huge constructed news for our main other talking point today, and that is the launch of the Magic Spotlight series. The return of Grand Prix? Well, kind of not.
Quite.
The Magic Spotlight series are going to be big 2-day tournaments held throughout the world, and by throughout the world I mean 5 in the United States, 2 in Europe, and 1 in Japan in the year 2025. So I'm sorry, Latin America. I hope that Wizards of the Coast supports you ever again.
Yeah, sincerely, once again in the laundry list of things that Latin America has been passed over for in the Magic world.
Yep.
Unfortunate.
Yep. So what is a Magic Spotlight Series event? Like I said, it's a big 2-day event with like a cut to day 2, and then day 2, a cut to a top 8 into an eventual winner. They will have a $50,000 prize pool, a sweet promo card that is relevant to whatever format is being spotlighted. Yeah, get it? Okay. And invitations will be distributed to the top 8 finishers to whatever Pro Tour is upcoming next. So, GP-esque in that it is a format. It's a big weekend long tournament with a prize pool that anyone can enter. You can show up, and if you run hot, or you have the sweet new tech of the weekend, or you've been grinding it out and just are a pretty dang good player, you could spike a top 8 and you could go straight to the Pro Tour without having to win your RCQ, then do well at the regional championship, all that kind of stuff. But these are pretty sick. Each of them are going to spotlight whatever format Wizards thinks is relevant. In the vein of our conversation last week around how we were kind of sad that Standard has not been spotlighted at all around this awesome time for Bloomborough, this does feel like it may help fill in the schedule a little bit. During Foundations Standard will be the first event, January 3 to 5 in Atlanta. And I believe at that time the RCQ season is not going to be Standard. So don't quote me on that, though. I made it up. I pulled it out of my butt. But I think these are a great opportunity for, like where we are right now. Our last Pro Tour was Modern. We just ended Pioneer season. Our next RC is going to be Pioneer. We are in Modern season. Our next RC after the Pioneer one is going to be Modern. And we do have a big Standard tournament. It's coming up, but not until Worlds, which is not until November?
October.
Late October. Yes, late October at MagicCon Vegas. But we have had a pretty long dearth of impactful Standard formats now. So if this had already been running, maybe that we would have a Standard event in the Spotlight series right now. Overall, very cool to see. I think we need more variety in the competitive scene, and this will allow for more formats to be featured at one time. And they have pretty much already said that if 2025 goes well, they would love to explore having more than 7 total dates in 2026. But they're starting with the first, starting with the first 8 dates in 2025. If those go well, hopefully more. Oh, and of course, the most important point, all of them will have coverage. Yay! So, Magic Spotlight series, any thoughts? Everyone super hype? I'm ready for the Pauper one.
That's not mad.
I know, they did explicitly say they're not going to have a Pauper one.
Many people brought that up in the
chat
stream.
Was on so much opium. Yeah.
And oh my gosh, the look on their faces when they're just like, ooh, probably not.
Yeah. So, that was never going to happen, but I appreciate people just getting our backs anyway.
It's kind of unfortunate though, because there's such a huge Pauper scene in Europe, right?
Yeah,
I would have loved to have seen.
So we do have Paupergeddon in Italy, which is about 800 people, which is Grand Prix-esque without the PT invites. But people turn up anyway, regardless of what it is. So it doesn't. You don't need a PT invite because people are going to turn up.
Yeah, right. Like that's just for the love of the format. If there was like some sort of incentive to actually show up, like it'd be so many more other players.
In general, I'm quite excited for the Spotlight series.
Yeah, me too. Coverage, Cedric Phillips, I know, is already confirmed, and I think Patrick as well. Are
that
they
is correct.
Confirmed duo? Yeah. I can't wait to see them. Not
for the Spotlight series. They are confirmed duo for the DCRC, but Patrick has pretty much hinted that he is going to be in for the Spotlight series. So it's not official, but it is expected.
Well, yeah, I love watching great players play Magic, so I'm very excited for it. It's going to be great.
Me too. And I think the important thing about this, that the Spotlight series isn't hosted by Wizards, unlike Grand Prix pre-pandemic. These are hosted by TOs. So Star City Games will host the US ones. Big Magic is Japan, and I can't remember the European one. They're like a noted TO. They do a lot of the Lorcana challenges, I believe. So they have some TO experience as well. So it's not just Wizards doing this out of pocket. They're relying on TOs to help fire these off, which makes sense because that's what they do for the RCs. So why not just expand that further? It makes total sense.
I am very excited to see these tournaments. I think it'll be a great time. And as I've said plenty of times on this show before, more roads to the Pro Tour is always more fun for me. And any weekend when I can sit down like a zombie from early morning Saturday through late in the evening on Sunday and just listen to Cedric Phillips and whoever else is with him talk about Magic the Gathering, I am a happy guy.
That's what I'm talking about, because I'm not a sports person. So like, yeah, when I get that good like sportsy time, just sit down on the couch and watch some shit and eat some bad food. It's so fun.
See, Dan, if you were into the NFL, you could do that every Sunday for the next 22 weeks.
Trust me, I want to be. A friend of the show, Tori of the Vast from the Scry Babies, very big football fan, and we are very good friends, but I haven't been able to make myself enjoy it yet. I honestly, this is going to be controversial, I enjoy baseball more than football, I think, watching it.
In person or on TV?
On TV. I know, that's the sad part.
Interesting.
I know.
Because if you said in person... Sure.
Yeah,
because baseball's
I don't drink, so there's no appeal to me to go in person. You can eat the hot dogs, I guess.
That's fair.
I'd be into the hot dogs.
You win. Okay.
Yeah, we gotta get you sober Dan on the 999 challenge.
I don't know what that is. Oh, that's when you eat 9 hot dogs and drink 9 beers and do 9 what else? Over the 9 innings?
Over the 9 innings,
that's incredible.
It's a beer and hot dog per inning is what it's supposed to be. So you're on a clock.
I could do the 9 hot dogs, I think, relatively easily. But the combination, I would be sick.
How did you do on your challenge, Cal?
So the beers were easy.
You and me got a tag team it. That's what it is.
The beers were easy. I was staring down that 7th hot dog and feeling like I was going to die.
7's a lot. That's a lot of bread. That's a lot of bread.
It is a lot of bread.
It's a lot of carbs.
Yeah, I did. Eventually, I deigned to admit it. I was taking the Joey Chestnut strategy toward the end there.
You dunk it in the water?
In my beer, yeah.
Oh,
Did you do your best duck impression?
Absolutely
not. Chew, but swallow.
Absolutely not. I was chewing that. Got to macerate it up, got to make sure it all goes okay down there. So in the moment, it was a lot of fun. Like the 7th inning stretch was like a godsend. I was feeling so bad in the 7th inning. And then once I was through the 7th inning, I was like, wait a second, I only have to have 2 more beers and 2 more hot dogs. That's a normal dinner.
I also hadn't considered that you have to do this in time with the innings, which is not a regulated thing. It's just as long as it lasts.
Dude, the 4th inning, I think, was just real quick. That was a early demotivator. I was just
you see that second out coming, down. Oh man, I gotta house this thing.
Yeah, exactly. It's just oh, we're already in the bottom half of the inning. Oh my gosh, I just got the beer.
That's really funny.
But some of the several guys did it with me. I was not doing it alone.
Okay.
And they all had a bad time the next day or the night of. I felt peachy keen. So I came out better than others.
So you couldn't get 2 beers and then finish. You had to finish it before the next inning.
That was yeah.
Okay.
So
sure.
Will they even sell you 2 beers at a baseball game?
They would sell you 2 beers and they would sell you up to 5 hot dogs. So
I love that there's a limit on the hot dogs.
well, okay, so there's a limit on the hot dogs because the only reason I didn't go bankrupt doing this was my local minor league baseball team has Diamond Dog Night a couple times a season. So the dogs were only costing me 10 cents each. So they limit you to 5 per trip on Diamond Dog Night.
Okay.
So you don't just walk up and be like, give me 50 hot dogs and then give them $5. Anyways.
Such a long detour.
Magic Spotlight series.
Is that what we were talking about? I forgot.
Wouldn't recommend the 9 hot dogs and 9 beers at a Magic Spotlight series.
Oh my god!
Oh, that's a whole different challenge.
I have invented my new Magic the Gathering sub format 3-3-3. It's my new draft format. 3 beers, 3 hot dogs, 3 packs.
I was gonna say, who's that guy who like won an RCQ on mushrooms? He could do it easily.
I think everyone hates that guy.
Probably, I think so. Keep that part in.
Anyways, Magic Spotlight series. I'm excited. More competitive Magic, more good. Specifically, something that anyone can show up to in their town or travel to. Enter a big tournament with stakes. You can get into the Pro Tour. $50,000 on the line is a lot of money. I'm sure it'll be a good time for all. Speaking of a good time for all, it's time to talk about the product.
The goods and services that Wizards of the Coast provides us.
Yeah, it's time for the Product Watch.
Product Watch.
Welcome to the Product Watch, the part of the show where we talk about all the fun little products coming down the pipeline for you to purchase with your hard-earned cash to line Daddy Hasbro's pockets.
I'm confused as to why we even do this segment. You sound so sarcastic.
Much like was alluded to if you read closely in between the lines in Michael Major's article about how Nadu came to be, we have more products coming every 2 weeks. Not that much this time, though. Emma just wanted to talk about today's D&D Secret Lair drop. We kind of talked about it. We gave you the rundown of the product last week, but the mechanics of this drop and also of future Secret Lair drops are changing a little bit. Emma, how are they changing?
Yeah, so essentially... So let's just do a quick origin story. So when Secret Lairs came out, they were, print to order. So they would print XYZ within, a month window of orders, and then they would print them and ship them. That took about 6 months, which is a horrendously long time from you buying the product and then forgetting about it and going, what's this? Oh, it's the Secret Lair I bought last year,
Yep. Oh, cool.
It's not a great experience. It guaranteed you the product, which is cool, but you just, the interest is gone, right? So then soon Wizards changed it to what it is now, which is, limited time window. They print XYZ stock ahead of schedule. Once they sell it, they sell it within the window, and if it goes, it goes. This has obviously ruffled some feathers in the community because not everyone can get a hold of it. Monty Python recently was a quite controversial one because Wizards didn't print enough. They got the numbers wrong. There was too many scalpers. There was too many people wanting it. Whatever. However, this way works better logistically for Wizards because they can just ship the product out immediately. And it just, I imagine it also frees up their printing factories and stuff as well because they also have to print sets and whatnot. So what they're doing now is they're keeping to the, print XYZ's product and we sell through it. However, if it doesn't sell through, they keep it on the store until it sells through. Basically creating a Secret Lair store. So you might see some Secret Lairs that didn't, like the last few drops that didn't sell out properly, but you can still pick them up if you want to. Which is something Wizards should have probably done from the start because it makes sense. Because, you don't want to be left over with tons of unwanted Secret Lair products. So basically, they're just, if they don't if they still have product after a time window, it's still going to be there, and you can still buy it if you want. And then once it's gone, it is then gone.
Well, it looks like I hope they put all the stuff they have left over stuff like onto the website, like all the stuff from the past. I'm really looking forward to buying 10 of that secret lair that had a sorcery instant printed as a sorcery.
It would be very cool to see them do that.
I don't know if they're doing it with older stuff. I know they're doing it with the current stuff onwards. I don't know if they're retroactively doing it.
Well, that's the only product watch we've got for today. That's it. That's everything you need to know about upcoming Magic the Gathering products. You now will no longer be time limited to buy your secret lairs. You will just be limited by however much product Wizards of the Coast decides to make. There was a funny little thing that happened today with the D&D release. All of the Magic the Gathering fans hustled onto the secret lair website, you know, and created the classic situation in which, there was like an hour plus queue to get into the checkout, and everyone was concerned about being able to lock up their copies and so on and so forth. And then someone just like quietly noticed that they were also for sale on the D&D Beyond store. And you could just immediately buy them and check it out there, and with no problems.
Oh my god!
And so
that's so
yeah,
funny.
you still can. They're still there.
Even
so,
now.
like, someone pointed that out. Eventually, the prof tweeted about it, and so it's just like, if you want. Apparently, like, the only difference, it is classic U.S. centric. The D&D Beyond store does not offer international shipping, whereas the Secret Lair store does. So people in the U.S. could get that shit immediately.
That's so funny.
Very funny. And it also like kicked me out of my FOMO mode. Like, I was like, oh cool, I was gonna order the Karlach thing. Let's go over to this website. Yep, I'm gonna put it into my cart. And then I saw the total and I was like, actually, never mind.
Once it gets to the shipping stage and it's like up to $60, I'm like, I don't really want these cards.
Yeah, I was like, oh, 30, cool, whatever. Yeah, toss 2 of them in, yada yada. And then I see like the final total and I'm like, oh brother. Yeah. Just click that X button.
I've done that on more than one occasion.
I've done that with many a product. All right, we're nearly gone for an hour now, so let's get to the final part of the show. It's time for the co-host notebook. Welcome to the co-host notebook, the part of the show where the co-hosts decide what we want to talk about rather than me deciding what we're going to talk about. As always, Emma, let's talk about Baldur's Gate 3. I'm not even going to sugarcoat it. Let's talk about Baldur's Gate 3.
So like, I've actually done a lot of Magic stuff recently, but this is the co-host notebook where we can't talk about Magic properly. So
the one rule is you can't talk about Magic.
So yeah, I've been playing Baldur's Gate 3 about 35-ish hours in. Just finished Act 1, started Act 2. Things are starting to get interesting. Honestly, I thought all of my companions were some grade of being an arsehole, but they're actually starting to be nice now. So
who's your favorite so far?
I don't know if I have a favorite right now, because I feel like Act 1 is where you can just kind of like warm up to people. You start to get to know people, and I've just started Act 2 where nothing's really happened yet. I met Elminster to stop Gale turning into an atomic bomb, but that's about it.
Oh, Elminster.
Are you attracted to any of them? I understand this is a big aspect of the game.
Not yet.
Okay.
But it feels like that side, the companion side of it, kicks off in Act 2. Act 1 does a really good job of setting the stage and make sure you have all your companions and whatnot. Like, I've done a lot of combat. When I mean combat is talking myself out of shit situations because I'm a bard with high persuasion and stuff like that. Yeah, like the writing seems good, the voice acting seems great, but I don't have like a favorite right now. I think Karlach is probably just out ahead because she just seems the less, arseholey out of the bunch. She's just annoyed that she just can't touch people.
Definitely, she's kind of sick. I like her a lot. I do like Karlach a lot. One of my.
She also goes oi oi, so I have to.
Oi oi.
Just
brethren.
The words of my people.
Well, Emma, I'm glad you're enjoying it. It is kind of wild to me, like, how long of a game it is. Like, there are plenty of games that you can easily complete and then some in 35 hours, and you have completed Act 1. Yeah. And, like, Act 2, I think, is bigger than Act 1, and I think Act 3 is bigger than Act 2. So
I think this is going to be a 100-hour playthrough.
Yeah, it's pretty
and
sick.
me just scratching the surface of that as well.
Yep.
So
That's good. That's the quality of a good game, in my opinion.
Yeah. Exactly. You have almost gotten past me. I got like a decent bit into Act 2, and that's where I eventually just like started doing other things with my life rather than obsessively playing Baldur's Gate 3.
I do need to finish this before Dragon Age Valguard comes out, which is end of October. That's my
limited time.
Yeah. Gives me an incentive to push through. Not that I'm struggling to not play it, but yeah.
Well, I don't know. Maybe you'll have to wait like a good 2 weeks, for like the classic BioWare patches to catch up with the game. So I don't know.
I'm taking the Friday off just to like install it and just jam it. But I'm expecting it to be pretty buggy as per with weekend releases of video games these days. So.
Yep. Well, Dan, what about you? What's in your co-host notebook? Anything at all?
Well, this week on Skippity Toilet, no. What have I been up to? Usual. Been getting outside a lot. Been enjoying this like real break in the heat wave in Philadelphia. So that's been awesome for getting outside and stuff. I've also been getting back into playing guitar a bit. It's something that I have done for my entire life for like 20 plus years, but I've kind of fallen out with it over the past couple. But yeah, this weekend I restrung and cleaned the fretboard on both of my guitars and did a bunch of playing, set up my amplifier in the basement. It was a good time.
Just jamming?
Yeah, just going through some old stuff that I used to play a lot, seeing how much I can just pick up again off of muscle memory, which was far more than I expected. So that was fun.
It does kind of just come back to you a little bit.
Yeah, totally. Like I've never been a classically trained musician, so like I sort of have like a made up language in my head of how I will remember songs and stuff. And yeah, like going through certain sections of pieces and be like, oh yeah, and then this like little thing with my fingers here, I remember that too. It's very satisfying when you can string them all together. I was able to play 2 entire Mastodon songs just like from memory. Nice. And I was like, okay, that feels really good. This is fun.
Now this is epic, is what I believe they say at the end of Skibbity Toilet episodes.
And the end of Mastodon songs.
And also at the end of Harold's Horn episodes. All right, that's all we've got for you today. Dan, I am legitimately so happy you're back to playing music. I miss playing music a lot. I just got a little thumping around on my bass a little bit these days, but nowhere near much as I used to. Jen's been trying to get a piano in the house because Jen is real invested in me picking up my collegiate level classical pianist again. Go back to that version of Cal one of these days. But that's all we have for you for this episode. Lots of band talk, lots of Baldur's Gate 3, lots of playing music. We've got a great interview for you coming up. Thanks so much for listening. Goodbye. Hey there. Thanks for listening to this podcast episode. If you want to help support the podcast, check out our Patreon. You'll get a sticker in the mail and access to our Patreon exclusive content, which I'm always cooking up more of every day. We've got bonus questions with guests, exclusive interviews, me thought dumping about magic in my life. What else could you want? Plus, when we read letters to the editors, those sent through Patreon DMs or the Discord get first priority. Yep, we have a Discord that you'll be thrown into. Come talk to me about professional wrestling. Anyways, without any further ado, let's get back into this episode. And welcome back. I have another excellent guest this week here on the Herald's Horn, and today I am joined by the one and only Ben Wheeler. Say hello, Ben.
Can I say thank you for having me? It's great to be here instead. That's kind of
the thing.
If I don't, people shout.
I will give you permission to say that.
All right, thank you. Thank you for having me. It's great to be here.
Where did that originate?
I thought it would be very funny. I mean, how guns blazing do you want us to be right away?
We can get as guns blazing.
Okay, great. So one of the things about being like a content person is how everybody remembers every little thing you say. And like, I thought it would be really funny to do have a phrase that if I said enough, people would latch onto it. And so I picked an intro or a catchphrase that was just so boring. Like, it's just so polite.
It is just like something that anyone would just happen to say. They're like,
yeah.
Hey, Wheeler, thanks for joining us. You're like, thanks.
Yeah.
It's great to be here.
Thank you for having me. It's great to be here. And it's stuck and it's great. And it still to this day confuses people. They're like, why do you say that?
That's
or like,
the catchphrase.
Are you thankful? Yeah, that's it. That's it. Yeah, sorry, my bad.
No, I want you to actually not be grateful to be here. I want you to say, Who are you? How do you know me?
Why am I here?
Why am I here?
What happened?
It's bad to be here. No thanks for having me.
Sometimes I'll let you in on this. And I'm not saying that this particular instance is a qualifier. Sometimes when I say it's great to be here, I don't even mean it.
Sometimes on the rare occasion.
Yeah. I mean, mostly it's like, even if that's not true in my head, I'm like, I know I said it's great to be here, but actually it's only like okay to be here. It's like medium to be here.
Middling to be here.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. It's like fine to be here.
Okay.
Yeah. This is good though. I'm liking this.
This is a great time so far.
Yeah. I'm digging it.
Right. I know it is. It's nice to finally talk to each other. We've been we've been adjacent in circles for a long time, but we've never really gotten to chat. So I appreciate it. So Wheeler, everyone who comes on here for a reason. That reason is that I asked them to be here. No, everyone comes in here to talk about something. And Wheeler, I think if someone looked at your, for lack of a better place to look, perhaps your Twitter or X bio, it does feature Canadian Highlander and Gladiator and the Commander Advisory Group.
Yeah.
Which means that you are intimately involved, perchance, in 3 different fan-run Magic the Gathering formats.
Yeah, the hat trick.
The hat trick. Is there something that draws you to that in particular? You're just like, oh, I love... Or are you just a go-getter? Involved,
God, no.
Always so involved. You just say, hey, let me help. Hey, I see that over there.
Kinda, like, I do enjoy how much of Magic can be played without any kind of interaction from what is actually going, like, with what's going on,
like whatever is new or
flavor
of the month, or
you still have to kind of tune in a bit. Yeah, but like, I don't know, I like talking to people about cards like this and formats like this and the cards that show up there and have a lot more relevance in those kind of formats. But one thing I've never, I think here I'll give you an exclusive.
Ooh, okay.
One thing that I don't think I've ever articulated in recorded medium about this is that I played a lot of competitive Pokemon, like the video game, and they, not the like VGC, the officially run,
the actual
format.
stuff run by a Pokemon company. Yeah.
No, I played the the Smogon.
Okay, you're saying you didn't do that. Yeah. So you did the Smogon stuff where there's a million billion tiers where you can go all the way down to playing whatever you want. And
all like community ran and, even before Smogon existed, like just other tiers playing on these simulators in like...
Did you have a tier of choice?
Ooh, I loved Gen 4 OU. That was my big, was my my big jam.
What are the best Pokemons in Gen 4 OU at the time?
So at the time, when I really played was before the 3rd installation in the series, Platinum, had come out.
Yeah.
And so Garchomp was not banned yet. And so I liked playing a lot of Garchomp.
Yep.
And then Garchomp got banned. Yep. And I really liked Salamence. And then Salamence got banned. But if I had to pick, I really liked Abomasnow.
Abomasnow sick.
Yeah, I have a soft spot for Hail because like Tyranitar. Can I swear on this, by the way?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Tyranitar is like the coolest to just ever exist, right? Like it just like T-Tar just like transcends like, you know,
it's like I'm a massive dinosaur.
Yeah, it's kind of like,
and I just mess everything up.
It embodies the soul of Dude's Rock.
Mm-hmm. That's how I also feel about Garchomp. I think Garchomp is also a very Dude's Rock Pokemon.
And so obviously to like a 12-year-old kid, I was like, oh yeah, this rules. And then you get an ice, like the ice grass version of it, which is so much worse, but still just like, this is a big tree. Like, that's dope.
Wait, they made the abominable snowman into a snowy tree.
Mm-hmm. And he always has his arms up. He's like, yeah. So that was pretty big fan of that. Big fan of that. But I really, I grew up playing the games that were community run. And I think that kind of showed like, and I thought that was just what everybody played. Mm-hmm. So then once VGC started getting more popular and finding out that wasn't like official in any way, shape, or form, like Nintendo's not even throwing any sponsorship money or anything to it. I was like, oh, you can just do this. Mm-hmm. Like, if your idea is good enough and you have enough passionate people, like you could just get people together just jamming for the sake of jamming. And there's some of the most passionate people, there's good and bad, but that's with anything that's like this. But you get some of the most passionate people involved in, the game, in playing stuff like Cube or Canlander or whatever, Commander too, like, yeah, it's really appealing to me.
For the listeners who may have just been completely lost there for a second. OU is we can call it a format for ease of sake. The OU, it's called Overused. It is a tier of Pokemon which includes everything that is not Uber, which is to say banned from normal. You can I would call like Overused almost like, I guess the closest equivalence is maybe just like Legacy. Like everything is legal unless it's way too good and then it's banned.
Yeah, that's pretty fair.
So in the Pokemon fan scene, like everyone just kind of plays Legacy unless they're crazy and want to play Vintage or they want to get really cute, and then you can play Never Used
or Pauper,
which
just a little cup or some
exactly
7U or 14U or whatever.
Exactly. Just like it gets real bad. The never ever used Pokemon.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So you came, like, that was your background. You're like, well, your background in this kind of related thing. You're like, you know what? I love this community type of thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, I played Magic as well, but it was I took a break from Magic, and when I was and that's also when I was playing a lot of the Pokemon, and so then that really kind of instilled this idea in me, especially at like a very developmental period of my life where I'm like, oh, hell yeah, community, that's kind of cool. And then when I got back into Magic, even though like Highlander was a thing before I took a break and after coming back, it's a far cry from what it is today, and Gladiator was but a glint in my eye at the time. So
I actually want to talk about Gladiator first. Mm-hmm. I assume it is the least known of the three formats that you are heavily involved with.
I would say yes, but at the same time, it's hard to tell. I keep losing track. Yeah, because like it's being on Arena as like the official event or with the queue. Yeah.
Well, okay, let's start here. What the heck is Arena, Wheeler? Not Arena. What the heck is Arena? Okay, what is Magic the Gathering? What is Gladiator?
You are a planeswalker.
There we go. What is Gladiator?
So Gladiator is a 100 card singleton format on Arena. I'm going to say it's played 1v1 because it's on Arena, but also, just for context, it's you versus your opponent. The intention is to win the game.
these are some tough spots here, man.
There is no sideboard, no commander, and the only companions are the ones that you include in your deck and the friends you make along the way. And there's a very small banned list of all the cards that you probably don't want to run into, or the cards that you're like, this is on Arena, right? Like the first time you play against like a demonic tutor.
Yeah, demonic tutor is the exact card. So some cards from the Strixhaven archives are banned, is what you're getting at here.
Yeah, basically a lot of special guest cards.
Oh, for sure.
And like Oko.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So similar yet different almost to Canadian Highlander, but on Arena.
Yeah, so it's kind of funny how it came about. It was started during the pandemic, like very early into the pandemic, and we had scheduled a Canadian Highlander night on the stream for Loading Ready Run, for our like weekly Friday Night Magic stream, and that was no longer a possibility because we couldn't be in the same room.
Yep.
And so the idea was to play on Magic Online. And that was a cool idea for some of us because like I've been playing on Moto since I received the fucking 8th edition disc with Sarah Angel.
You just have been doing it for forever.
Yeah. Whereas other people haven't. And I am a Moto defender, but still, like, I get it. If you don't know what you're doing, it's terrible and very difficult to like grok like right away. And one of the people on the stream was just having such a shit time. They were just
no clue what to do.
Just
timing out.
F6 through their turn, misclicked, like stops were bad, and they were like not dealing with it. And I remember thinking to myself, like, wow, that stinks. Like, I wonder if there's a way that we can play something like Highlander, right? Just 100 card singleton 1v1. But on Arena to help alleviate some of the like, difficulties with Magic Online, and then Magic Online costs money, right? Like Arena does cost money.
It does cost money.
Especially in the early years or even the first year, like getting free to play Arena with like getting a whole Gladiator deck was like a realistic
not that
thing
hard.
you could do. Yeah. You can still kind of do it nowadays too. We have people popping up doing exactly that, every day.
Well, like if you only need like 100 cards to start or what have you, and then a lot of the staples probably cross over between decks and
yeah. And there was a very small collective of people that were playing something similar, but there was like a bunch of with somebody who I knew like in real life was involved with it. They're like, yeah, you should check this out. I'm like, okay, I'll check this out. And I immediately a bunch of red flags popped up for like how, like, no shade on people running it, but there was a bunch of things where I'm like, oh, well, that's weird. That's not intuitive. And like, I believe there was a points list being used or discussed. And like, for those that don't know, Canadian Highlander uses a points list of like each deck has up to 10 cards. The most broken things in the history of the game have points attached to them, so you can play Black Lotus or Ancestor Recall, but not both, kind of thing.
And then by like playing those cards, you also give up the opportunity to play Flash plus something else or whatever. I don't even remember if Flash is pointed anymore, but
it is. Protean Hulk is free to go, but yeah, it basically just is like you get to build whatever deck you want, but also you don't get everything.
The best of the best is limited.
Yes, yeah. And points suck. They're terrible. It's not just us too. Like the Aussies, the 7-point Highlander, they use points too. Yeah. And both of our formats use it out of necessity.
It's a very intriguing concept, but it simply seems hell to manage.
Yeah, it's masturbatory, it's vibe based, like pick any Wheeler buzzwords you want to throw in there. It's just a lot of like people always think about points as like, well, the data reflects is like, no, that's not data. This is not enough. I don't care if you're pulling from locals, Discord things, whatever. It's like
it's not enough. To actually make any conclusions. Yeah,
it is vibes based. based. It is vibes and experience. And we use them because if we didn't, then you're just playing Vintage Lander, and I hope you like playing Time Vault Mirrors over and over again. Or you're just like the ban list means that you can't play with the Lotus and whatnot, and that's kind of the appeal, right? It's like,
you can play a Lotus, you can play Power. I
get to play Power. You get to play all these cool cards. I get to, a bunch of things that are like banned in like Commander or Legacy, and that people are like, this card shouldn't be banned in this format. And it's like, well, maybe it should, but also like if you want, you could check this out. Like Goblin Recruiter to your heart's content. Why don't you? Bunch of stuff like that. But yeah, so all these things popped up that was like, this seems a little iffy. And so I reached out to the person. I'm like, hey, how do you feel about all these things? All these changes? Because like, just a heads up, I think there's something in this idea of like Arena Highlander. And they were just like not down to clown, and also just very like oddly not down to clown, as far as I remember, oddly not down to clown, but also just like, I just do this in my spare time. And it's like, too. Okay, cool. Yeah. Gotcha. Yeah. Immediately sympathetic to it all. I'm like, okay, that's fine.
Actually, I don't have time to think about this right now.
I'm gonna go do this thing then. And so like basically on that day, I remember like rounding up my mods. I'm like, hey, so I have this idea. Let's do it. Banned list, 100 card, like no sideboard, no points, no nothing, whatever. You can play your rat colonies. Who cares? Like, that was one of the other rules, is like you couldn't play Rat Colony and Friends. Just being like, this is weird because even if you could, it sucks, but you want to give people the opportunity to like have fun with it, or have the story of like, oh, I built a Rat Colony deck and I went 2 and 3, but like think about the 2 people I beat with Rat Colony. You want that kind of thing. So it just like got created out of the fact that Magic Online is frustrating to people not familiar with it, and that we want people to be playing Rat Colony, I guess.
That makes sense.
Sure.
And then the rest is history.
Mm-hmm.
There's a bit of team behind Gladiator now, right?
Yeah, we have a council of players and primarily tournament organizers. So folks that run the weeklies, the monthlies, assist with the yearlies, assist with like coordinating for like getting preview content for like the alchemy sets, just like community pillars that have even if themselves might not play as much Gladiator as some of the other people in the format or win as many tournaments or whatever, again, the numbers aren't important. It's vibes.
They bring the correct vibes to the vibes-driven decision-making.
And if they don't have a good read, then they start talking. They know who to talk to, right? That's huge. And they're all pretty grounded people, so they can take that information and like process it into a pretty reasonable take. Yeah.
So if you had to summarize your experience helping with these formats, the takeaway is vibes.
Yeah, it's all vibe space. People hate it.
You're a vibe operator.
I am a vibe cruiser right now. Yeah, people hate it. And it sounds, I could probably find a word to use that is less memey or sounds more important, but it's true. It's
a word that is, I think, entered a lot more common vernacular recently for a lot of this kind of stuff, because it just is what it is. In a lot more, I think Sheldon and other people like on the rules committee and stuff said a lot of stuff like this in a lot more flowery language over the last 20 years, right?
Yes.
Hey, we're just picking up on what people are putting down, and then we make a decision. That's all there is to it, buddy. I don't know what you want from me.
We unfortunately do not have the tens of thousands of hundreds of millions of standard games and modern games and the data to back it up, and all this stuff to go off of. So instead, and like also just, I mean, Gladiator, it's a little bit different, but like, you know, Commander, people's priorities are so all over the place, and it's, it's hard to point at a number and be like, well, this says that.
Well, and I think that is, even if we are talking about just like vibes operated decision making or similar, there, with Gladiator and Canadian Highlander, both, you at least have like the distinct advantage where theoretically everyone playing, you know, I think you said it as offhandedly when you were describing Gladiator, and it may have been tongue in cheek or it may have been entirely serious, but it's 1v1 and both people are trying to win the game.
Yeah, no, that is something I like to put emphasis on, because, you know, and naturally people see a deck this tall and they're like, so is this Commander? It's like, no, you're trying to win the game. Like, you know, that is the primary objective. You might try to style on your opponent along the way, or like how you win the game is not going to be the most competitive option, but it might be the most suiting for your skill set or whatever. But yeah, you're trying to advance through the bracket. Like, that is the goal.
Another way that I know that at least Canadian Highlander contrasts with Commander, not to just compare and contrast everything here. Yes. Looking quickly at one Gladiator ban list update article, I can see this is the same. One thing in contrast to the way that Commander is operated, which has kind of been a bit closed ranks. There is like a decision of the committee, and this is the decision of the committee, and we don't really talk about who thinks what. That has started to change a little bit, I think, now that Jim has started talking online a lot.
Yes.
Jim has started giving his opinions about things online, that's for sure. That's the Jim I know. But with both Gladiator and Canadian Highlander, you are very vocal. You post like the voting of every individual member on each individual topic or a card or whatnot that you have to decide about. What was the thought process behind that? I assume it comes from Canlander, and I don't know if you were involved in the original decision behind that when it came to Canlander, but
yes and yes.
Okay.
It was more of like it's an organic decision of like, people want to be like, for one, as it gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and Canlander, you know, became a thing that you have a lot of people like all over the world. Like, it is part of why I say it's so tough to figure out how many people are actually playing all these formats. It's just like, you know, you can look at the size of the Discord, but like, that doesn't mean anything.
Yeah, it's just like,
right?
I'm in the Canlander Discord, and I've never played a game of Canlander in my life. I just like to keep up with stuff.
or like, same as with the Gladiator, like you can look at the Gladiator Discord, like 8,000 people play that on the Discord, and I can give you that number, but also just like, you know, the numbers that I've received from the Arena team about like, hey, this went well, like, say, you know, otherwise, and then you get into this like, well, are they a Gladiator player, or are they someone that played Gladiator? And also, I'm a big dickhead for saying stuff like that, you know, like you get into this weird like 100 card singleton, like phone games aren't games kind of discussion, which is real gross, and I'm not here for it.
Phone games aren't games? What?
Oh, sorry. I did this thing where in my head the comparisons sound really good.
Well, I just don't mean. I just don't know what you mean by phone games.
Okay, so you know how there are a bunch of surveys that say like there are more people playing games than ever.
Oh yes,
and saying like certain demographics like play more, like a huge amount of games.
Yes, there's
and then chuds are like,
oh, women don't play games; they just play Farmville. Yeah,
there you go.
Yeah, I get
shit like that.
Yes.
Yeah, and so you get people being like, these aren't real players of Gladiator. They've just played when it's a format on the system, and it's like, yeah, because it was there. Like, what do you want me to do? Like, yeah, they only played it because they could play it, and it's like, yeah, dude, like. Yeah, I don't know. Dickheads are the same no matter which brand of degeneracy and bigotry they subscribe to. What was I getting at? But like, Yeah, but like online, you can look at those numbers and stuff. But like when I was in MagicCon Amsterdam, just so like we had like 90 Canlander players there, like taking over the creator area, literally getting told we have to leave because there's too many of us. And like none of these, or not none of these people, but so many of these people are just like, no, I just play with my friends. Or just jam we just at hang out. Events or whatever. Yeah, exactly. So it's hard to track stuff like that. But what I'm trying to tie this all into is that like the people that are more invested are naturally going to want more information, more transparency. And so in an effort to not only appease those people, which necessarily you don't have to do, but like it's kind of two birds, one stone, and something that we were already taking steps towards, appeasing those people, but also just like letting these people know that at like these bigger events, like, hey, we're just people as well, like we're just here to jam. We're here to learn, whatever. It humanizes us, right? Like because it's not a group of shadowy people. It's a group of Canadians that have just been playing this format for like,
it's just Ben.
20 years. Yeah, exactly. Like and it's not like we are like bolted down in our takes either. Right. And so being able to like talk about it from my like, and people to build up like a rapport or whatever of like, oh, Ben thinks that all these cards should be one pointed or whatever. It helps create more of a conversation of like, yeah, and here's why, or like, yeah, but I've changed my tune, and I think only 3 out of 5 of these cards should be pointed. I think it puts a little more personality behind the individuals on the council, as well as more personality behind the communication as a whole, which really, again, just plays to the strengths of it being community based, right? An announcement doesn't need to sound like it's been procedurally generated or like it's, legal binding action or whatever. It's just like, yeah, dude, Underworld Breach honks. It's going up a point. Like, I don't know what to tell you. Like, and sometimes we do that. Yeah. So I remember writing up the justification for removing Summoner's Pact from the points list. And I was like, this card's bad. Like,
why are you playing this?
Or it's not bad, but it's like, there's no way you're playing this at one point. If you know someone that is playing this at one point, like, let me get in contact with them. I'll try to make sure that they're okay. Like, see if I can talk them through this, because like something's going on.
Bro, it gets your Protean Hulk for your Flash, bro. It all just came down to the fact that Flash... Okay, I can't believe that I was asking if Flash was pointed or not, if Flash is 7 points. That's embarrassing. That's on me.
Flash is kind of busted.
Yeah, it's on me.
It's pretty good.
Well, it's kind of like where they Summoner's Pact, it goes and gets your Protean Hulk, bro, so you can flash it in, bro. The problem was not Hypnotic Spectre, my guy.
No. Yeah.
The problem was Dark Ritual, actually.
I would say it's the Dark Ritual,
Okay, yeah. Do you think it gives more personality to the crew, gives more transparency to the crew? I like that a lot. Does everyone on the panel, or not panel, council?
Yeah.
Do they get much of a chance to then like individually explain their thoughts? Is that more a person by person basis? I'm sure everyone knows your thoughts at length for every pointed card.
They do for sure. Whether or not it is in depending on who writes the message going up, whether or not people want to add like a little addendum either on the announcement or on the website, or if they are active within, say, the Discord, where there was some hesitation with this because, a lot of the time when people say they want more transparency, what they want is an easier access to harass someone.
To yell at someone why they're not doing exactly whatever they want. Yeah.
And so, but we are at least more of a closed kind of group for that. And it's pretty easy to just like pop them on site if they're being a dickhead. And so, a little hesitant, but we figured, well, if it turns out to be a bad idea, then we'll deal with it. But again, these councilmen, they've been in the trenches
for a while
now. For years. And so if somebody sources them and they're like, hey, why'd you vote against this going down or up in points? It's like, well, they're going to explain their take. And they came prepared. They've been having this conversation because like we don't just go into the voting booth blind. It's more of like a voting kind of conversation of like, it feels like a game of werewolf almost, right? Of like, well, I'm going to vote to increase because of all of these reasons. And then everybody else says their piece and like maybe we shift it around a little. And then at the end, it's like, okay, we ready to vote? Great. And then we vote, one way or another. And sometimes we've had a vote where like it goes one way and then somebody's like, why did you vote like that? Then
Actually,
it starts,
why did you do that?
Yeah. Hold on. What happened? Why are we doing this? And then we'll change our mind and like it doesn't happen that often, but like this isn't like 20 minutes before the thing gets posted too. Yeah. This is more like a continual conversation, and then we lock it in. And it's like, okay, like 5 days from now, we're making this announcement. We're writing things up.
Something gets changed anyway.
Yeah. Do you want to like shout that these two people shouldn't be married? Like, what do you want to do before we get to crunch time? That doesn't really happen anymore now that we have a more like continuous like conversation about balance. But it's fun. It's fun's maybe not the right word. I mean, it is genuinely fun.
It's got to be fun. Has the council had much evolution over time? How do you feel about that? Do you think
it? Yes, absolutely has.
Massive net positive.
I'd say so. I have some takes surrounding that I don't necessarily want to voice here. We did just introduce, like, it's not taboo or whatever. Yeah. It's just my take on some of these doesn't really line, like my general stance on this doesn't line up with like the intent. We recently introduced what's the word I'm looking for? A Discord points panel is what it's called.
Fascinating.
Basically, they are people that are involved in communities, because right now the council is all people in Victoria, the Victoria, British Columbia, birthplace of the format. And we are initially we were voted in. We would just like vote like at every like 4 months or whatever, or 3 months.
I hereby vote for Surge to represent me at the next.
People would like they wouldn't campaign. But people would be like, I want to be on the council, and we'd have votes for it and stuff. And it was not great.
Mm-hmm. It seems like it could have some odd incentives over time.
Yeah, usually, thankfully, those people were kind of rooted out very quickly.
Definitely.
And I am amazed that it was not as much of a popularity contest as it could have been. But yeah. And then it kind of evolved to us being like cemented in. Like the council is just
eventually it settled in.
Yeah, myself, Robin, and Spencer have been involved in the council for like since 2010 or whatever, right? So like a long time. Some of the people playing the format right now, when we were like started the council, when we didn't start the council, but when this like core was on the council, some of these people were like in kindergarten, right? Like, so we've been around the block on that. And the creation of this this Discord Points Council is to basically involve players from outside of Victoria, specifically those that are very active within the online community and their own individual kind of like
more local
at home in person local communities. Yes. And they don't get like a direct vote for changes, but they are effectively like, it's like the commander advisory group oh God, how tongue in cheek do I want to be? It's like the Commander Advisory Group, except we listen to them, like it's, it's like it's we'll see the stuff and be able to relay that and try to, format that, and we'll push back. And, I think that's good. I like the push and pull that we have, and that there is kind of a showing of like, look, the council is going to be, I think it's important for the council to be primarily in Victoria, because it's I don't want to be too blasphemous, it is like the pilgrimage site, right? You travel to Victoria to play on a Monday night, get your ass kicked by Robin Sorensen, and
go on your merry way.
Get yourself a Canada Dry, and you're good to go.
Go back to Seattle from whence you came.
yeah, exactly. So there has been some evolution to that. And even if I personally don't think it will have a huge impact on like the process of pointing or anything, I do think not illusion, like the idea that it is having some kind of impact, right? The gesture of it, and the genuine positives of being able to communicate with these people who are more online than
Are you insinuating that you're not very online?
No, I'm terminally online. I hate Discord. Discord's one of my least favorite things in the world. I can't. I grew up on the forums, and I'll die on the forums.
That's the tweet I make every 6 months, bemoaning the lack of indexing that exists on the internet anymore because of the propagation of Discord. That's
I hate it a lot.
Me too, buddy. That makes a lot of sense. And even if there's a fine line between like them getting to feel like they've been heard, and maybe they change someone's mind sometimes or influence a little bit, and that it's. I think that's something that these fan-made formats that have gained popularity. I mean, there's two fan-made formats which I think have gotten like more mass popularity at this point. Obviously, one of them is Commander, and I kind of view Canadian Highlander as like the other major fan format, but maybe that's just because I watch so much North 100. I think of Canadian Highlander as bigger than it is.
I genuinely think it is just bigger than even my, like, again,
a lot of people sneakily think it is.
Yeah.
Well, that's just like
secretly huge.
It's just like, I'm from the CDH scene, right? And like half the CDH players I know like maintain at least one Canadian Highlander deck, and I probably see more Canadian Highlander games at CDH events than like normal Commander games, which is funny. But I think that this kind of conversation is like something that the fan-made formats will have to figure out like eventually, right? Because Canadian Highlander is still very much based in Victoria, BC. Yeah. BC. Okay.
Yes.
I know so much about the geography of Canada. Write it down. But it has grown past that point some. And obviously all the experts are there and are involved. And it's the problem that the Commander format is currently dealing with, in my personal opinion, figuring out a way forward past the origins, which is tough. But Canadian Highlander probably won't have to think about that as soon.
Yeah, I mean,
if ever.
Victoria, realistically, like if you're just counting weeklies or whatever, like Victoria way definitely
than anywhere else.
No. Like there are like spots that are running like heavy when it comes to locals. Okay. And I mean, Victoria, we still get a healthy amount, and especially for like the higher stakes events when all the old timers are like, all right, well, it's time to win a duel.
What deck,
get up out of their armchair.
Can I put Time Vault into right now?
Yeah, exactly. Just dusting off their like unlimited recall, and they're exactly. Like, here we go. Which I think Victoria and the Victoria players handle. I don't want to say handled gracefully, because it's not like a bad thing. they're stoked, right? Like but it's funny because some of them are as disconnected from everything as the players that aren't on the Discord and just show up and jam side games, right? They're just like, Discord, what's that? Anyways, this is my 5th trophy this year.
Yep, that makes a lot of sense. Wheeler, how's the Commander Advisory Group been?
Frustrating. Yeah, it's I understand why on both a macro level things have been taking some time to make any progress. Obviously, losing Sheldon is a larger blow than anybody could ever imagine. Like, it is, either from just like losing the pillar to how it affects the people involved, right? Like, not to downplay obviously the severity of all of it, but it's like when that one buddy stops going to your weekly and then you're like, well, they're not going, why am I going to go? You know, like that, you get that. Not saying that that's the case, and I'm not trying to be too critical of the rest of the folks on the Commander Advisory Group or the RC. And for, to full disclosure, I have also just not been. I could be rattling off manifestos about unbanning Panoptic Mirror, but also just like, it's hard to also get motivated in my position when other people aren't leading by example. Aside from Jim, to give us credit, and some credit to Olivia too, of course, like working their asses off to try and get something set up only to get flamed. Be like, what do you mean you're making silver border legal? And it's like, no, that's not what we're doing. We're telling you how to like tell people that you're not going to booster tutor them into the dirt. You just want to play like Mesa Chicken.
Wait, I do kind of want to play booster tutor though, but I want to like open a BFZ pack. Is that too much?
Yeah. No, that's fine. But it's
Yep.
This is something that I have expressed to members of the RC and to other members of the CAG of like, what are we doing?
Yeah, what is the CAG doing here? What is the RC doing right now? What is going on?
What are we doing here? And like, truthfully, it's hard to make any change that's actually meaningful because of the frequency of new product coming out and just like, again, how big the format is and how different everybody's like, how it's all one format, but realistically there are like 6 different formats that people play of this one format. You could say that at the end of the day, you could say like CDH is still Commander and that precons are still Commander, but like,
and that precons before 2016 are still Commander. No, sorry, before 2019, before still Commander.
Yeah, but in the way that my standard deck is technically a legacy deck. It's like I could bring this carrot cake to my legacy locals, but then I get like a Traxid on turn 1. I'm like, oh, okay.
Wait, but I have a 1/1 rabbit.
Yeah. I do think there's a lot of attention. Like, I get why. There's a lot of attention that people, especially the terminally online crowd, will put towards the banned list as being like a tool that they can use to moderate power level that is also understandable and tangible.
Yeah, and it's a tough spot to be. Because in every other Magic format that exists, that is how it works.
Yeah.
Like, that is the one tool that is had to regulate anything, is the ban list. But Commander is uniquely different.
Yes. Yeah. And like, I feel like there are certain cards that people really will push more for like unbanning than banning, but they push for change that will... Like, realistically, how is this going to change your...
Change for change's sake.
Yes, yeah. Which has its own merit. That does have its own merit of, like, showing that there's a pulse or, like, using it to curry favor when tied to, like, an unfavorable change, right? Like, if they ban Golos 2... and people were like, boo, and they're like, but we unbanned Panoptic Mirror and Biorhythm, and people are like, yeah, you know, like it can be used as a bargaining chip, which is like kind of frustrating, but also frustrating from like a player perspective, but like totally reasonable from like a format moderation perspective.
I think they almost even tried that when they banned Golos, but they unbanned of all cards. They unbanned Worldfire, and everyone was like, "Who is this for?"
Yeah, exactly. What is this doing? Yeah, it. I don't know. I still, again, this is something that I could be more actively involved in. I could be doing my part more. I could be more vocal. I could be more loud and pushy. But also, I don't know if that's necessarily my role. No. I relay the information when I'm asked. I talk to a lot of people about Commander. I try to spread the gospel of playing dog shit, of like, you know, I use my platforms to be like, hey, check out this garbage that you can play that actually can like compete, and like here are the spots where you can compete, and like, you know, you would probably have a lot like some of them is just like advice. It's not great for everybody, but it's like, you know, if you get better at the game, you can play with worse cards. Like and it rules, right? You can just stretch that like meal out across a week of leftovers if you know what you're doing, you know, like the Midwestern mom approach to deck building.
That's my approach to eating.
Yes.
Yeah, that's fair. And it's like you said, like you could do all of that stuff, but right now, what's the point?
Yeah, it's just like the format. I don't know. People, every time I talk to people about Commander, they seem to be enjoying the format.
I have a blast. I can tell you that.
The criticisms I hear are not about Commander as much as they are about the release schedule of products, and then also just like it's you know, there's too many new legends coming out. And like so I run into stuff that I've never seen before, and it's like, isn't that a good thing?
Actually, that's the
isn't
that is the part I personally enjoy the most about the increased release schedule. Is back in 2018, I knew what every single Magic card did, which was kind of cool in its own way, but there was never anything surprising. And now, every time I play a Commander game, I get to learn 200 new cards.
It's a great party trick, but let me tell you, it's, you know, stumbling onto like a Fallout card where I'm like, wait a minute, this card's kind of gas.
Yes, that's
like,
fun.
That I just didn't know about or didn't care about. That's kind of nice.
But if you insist upon keeping up with Magic as much as possible, it can also be understandably a little exhausting.
Which is what a lot of people do, and they should probably kind of slide back in the saddle, maybe develop a slightly healthier relationship with their hobby. But
it's true. Yeah, I feel exactly for a very select subsection of people where like it's their job to keep up entirely with Magic. I feel bad for them. Everyone else, nah. Yeah.
I mean, yeah, you could feel bad for me just a little bit as a treat.
No,
but,
I won't. No, I won't. I know you're having too much fun over there.
Come on, it's my job. It's my job.
Please, Magic is my job. Please feel bad for me.
Honestly, my biggest complaint is so like centralized in exactly what I do. My biggest complaint about the set release is it's so hard to make a deck on Arena now for 100 card singleton, because I gotta go through all this bullshit commons that I know I'm not going to include. But then if I try to sort just rares and mythics, I'm going to miss like a Mother of Ruins, or like, I don't know, my like deck that's supposed to play Thraben Inspectors does not have both Thraben Inspectors.
Have the other Thraben Inspector.
So now I look like a complete jackass, and somebody in Twitch chat asks me, and then I have this like crossroads of like, tell them I forgot, or tell them like, well, you only really need one, and the soldier creature type is, you know, like,
not that relevant. I mean,
but it could happen. Who knows? Could pop up.
Yeah, that's that is a very unique complaint. You're right.
Yep.
I mean, I guess it'll make in the distant future, it'll make episodes of Shivam and Wheeler Love Magic a little bit harder.
Well, we've started having to split them up into like two-parters.
Because you guys love old Magic sets too much?
No, because new Magic sets are too big.
Oh, gotcha.
Because there's so many legends. We just recorded like Ikoria was a two-parter that we didn't know would have to be a two-parter. Because we spent 2 hours talking about all the legendary creatures.
Holy moly.
And like Dominaria, let me tell you, I'll give you a sneak peek here. We're recording Dominaria, which is the next set coming out. We recorded part 1 where we just talk about like the history of the set and the commanders. 2.5 hours. Part 1. Part 2 is going to be like another 2, maybe 2.5. Yeah. We're trying to be the longest Magic podcast.
You guys are also like certified yappers, so...
Oh yeah, it's bad. It's a cauldron of ADHD and like just nonstop, chin wagging and like just talking about old like type 2 decks or extended decks, and like she even will say something like, well, this card sucks. I'm like, somebody doesn't know about GP Kobe in 2002, you know, like get to drop him on one of those on him, you know. Yeah.
I'm too young for that. I'm a young man.
I mean, I'm not. I hope I'm not that old.
No,
Wait,
I know.
I think I got yelled at that I'm not old.
You're not old.
But like, I mean, I guess I was around. I started playing young, so and like almost immediately, like
really
drank the Kool-Aid of like. Yeah, Pro Tour and, you know, building real decks. Did not have a long kitchen table time. Yeah.
I mean, me either. But I just started only a decade ago.
Oh, okay.
I know. A mere decade ago. More than that now.
I think
12 years.
I started 23 years ago.
Yeah.
That's wild.
That's a long time.
My Magic career can almost rent a car in the United States of America.
Your Magic career is not that much older than me, Wheeler.
Oh, Jesus. Well, it had a good run.
Put it down. It's how many dog years old is?
My Magic career takes like 15 seconds to get up. It's just oh no.
Looking like a dual land winning Canadian Highlander player right now.
Yeah. Oh, just crusty. dust falling off it as it ascends. Yeah.
Wheeler, if you could summarize the way that you think you like to run formats in a word, could you? That isn't just like vibes or whatever.
It isn't vibes. Okay.
Yeah. Or it's like
and I can't use a synonym for vibes.
Okay, let's change up the question a little bit. If there is a consistent direction that you want to continually be pushing in through the power available to you, is there something that can
I got a 3-word sentence.
Okay, excellent.
Make decisions matter.
Okay, like in games.
In deck building.
Deck building. Yeah, sure.
Yeah. One thing I push a lot for Canadian Highlander that I think we've lost a bit on is 1-point cards. Because 1-point cards are the coolest thing to people that have been playing the format forever and that have just got into the format. Because they're the ones that make you feel smart. They're the ones that make you feel like your list is your
I'm getting
list.
away with this.
It is wild, the power of like... So Mox that are 3 points. If I'm playing like a triple, like a 3-color deck with like Mox Ruby, Mox Jet, Mox Sapphire. Like I'm a Grixis kind of mid-rangey deck. Now, the last point should probably be Treasure Cruise. 9 times out of 10 should be Treasure Cruise. Do you know how powerful it is to make that 1 point like True Name Nemesis? And then you draw it and you just blow your opponent out of the water.
I just win now. What are they going to do?
Doesn't matter your record. You feel like a genius, right?
Yep.
And I feel like we're losing that, but we're also losing the like ability to cut off certain cards from people playing the big like Ancestral Recall, Time Walk.
Yep.
Time Walk's a bad example, but Ancestral Recall being the like biggest culprit, right? We don't have as many cards to like make them actually pick. Like, you don't really have the question of like, am I playing Recall or not? And first off, I think that stinks. I mean, it is. I'm sure there's somebody furiously typing about how that's not the case. And like, yeah, of course it's not the case. But like most of the time, Ancestral Recall is just like the best thing to be doing and the best deck in the format.
Yep. Draws a lot of cards. Go next.
Yeah, it's pretty good. It's pretty good. Cards are cheap. Cards are efficient. I'm going to draw 3 of them and trade with, 1v1 with like your 3 drop with my 1 mana spell.
And I'd like to get it, and I'd like to cast it again. And if I can't cast it again, well, I guess I can always Treasure Cruise and Ancestral Recall again.
I would like to make decisions that cause people to feel smarter in their deck building. And like, cause that's like a huge part of these formats is like the gameplay can be absolute dog shit at sometimes. Like, who am I kidding? Like, and
I've watched a lot of episodes of North 100.
Yeah. Sometimes you're just like, damn, I left the house. I put gas in the tank for this, like, yeah. And like, that's just what'll happen for any of these formats, Vintage Cube, CDH. Sometimes you're the nail. Sometimes you're the hammer
for sure.
But like, I would like to make people feel better about their decisions before even sitting down and playing a match of Magic, because that's the kind of thing that gets people talking, gets the community aspect building up, being like, I built this with this pointed card. Anybody else play with this? So like, I did, but I also had this card with this. And then it creates this whole communication, and it just makes for a more of a community effort, I think. Yeah.
Well, Wheeler, thank you for joining me on this episode of the Herald's Horn. It's been great to have you. Before you go, I'm going to pick your brain about your favorite and least favorite 1-point Canadian Highlander card. But that'll be for the patrons. Is for the plebeians listening. They're not plebeians.
Shout out to plebes.
Shout out plebes. Is there anything you want to leave them with before we go?
Thank you for having me. It's great to be here. I can also plug my stuff. I don't know. Should I plug? Yeah, why not? I stream on Twitch, twitch.tv/Benjamin_Wheeler. If I'm not there, it's twitch.tv/LoadingReadyRun. And I'm on Twitter at BWheelerMTG. Play Gladiator, play Highlander. I do this for a living. It's good.
It's good stuff.
It's good. Yeah, there we go.
Recommended Twitch stream. It's the only Twitch streamer that I watch. One of 2. Both Canadians.
Seeing my name next to Northern Lion was like, I think I even posted it. I'm like, oh, come on, man. Like, coughing baby atomic bomb. Like,
Wheeler, thank you for joining me on this episode of the Herald's Horn.
Oh, thank you for having me.
It's been great. It's great to be here. It's been great to be here.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for listening to this episode of the Herald's Horn. Herald's Horn is hosted, edited, and produced by me, Cal Jones. The co-hosts are Emma Partlow, Lexi, better known as Black Girl Mage, and Dan, better known as Moderately Anonymous MTG. All of our info lives in the podcast description. If you want to reach out to me, whether with feedback, you want to give me money, or you just want to send a letter to the editor, hit up editorial@heraldshorn.com. Thanks again for listening to the Herald's Horn. We are having so much fun creating it. See you in 2 weeks.